Hey, here we go. Kind of tired of this mask. I don't see anyone else wearing it pretty much. So, from morning till night, this is pretty much what I have to deal with. I think this morning at around, what was it, like 7:30 in the morning. Basically, you can feel the bed shaking, the apartment shaking, everything shaking. And it sounds like, I don't know, I would say it would sound like huge rocks or boulders rolling down a metal plank and smashing into a large metal container. That's what it sounds like. And don't get me wrong, I am grateful to have a roof over my head and food to eat. Yet to be paying well over $1,000 a month to have to deal with this level of noise every day for 10 hours a day. It's just crazy. And it's not like this is a temporary thing. When I moved in here almost 2 years ago, there was no, oh, well, actually I take that back. When I moved in here, I would say about 2 weeks after I moved in, they started construction on the street. And then about 2 months after that, they started construction on the building, and now it just goes on and on and on. There's almost no stopping. It's just profoundly frustrating. But anyways, so I actually need to vent about that because I'm absolutely exhausted. And last night, I didn't get to sleep till maybe about 3:30 in the morning, because I have some neighbors on one side of me. I guess the guy is like a doctor that goes to your home. So he goes to your house and, I don't know, does house calls, whatever. And apparently he's making enough funds or making enough money that him and his girlfriend or wife or whatever went out and bought a big screen TV or some TV with lots of noise, and every night till like 2-3 in the morning they're playing the TV loud. And I know they're scrolling through YouTube, because if you obviously you have been on YouTube, when you switch through the menus, if you're doing it on Xbox or some other device like an Apple TV, it makes a beeping noise as it goes through the menu. And I hear that noise so loud, beep, 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 all night long. And it's so damn frustrating. And they just have no courtesy. They don't care. They're giggling and laughing at what they're watching. It's 2 in the morning. And I know they absolutely know that I can hear what they're doing. They know it. They just don't care. One thing I'm going to spend my channel doing is venting about just how awful this city is. I really, really dislike Miami. It's too expensive to live here. The people here are profoundly rude. They're profoundly shallow. If you pay someone to do work, here's basically how it breaks down. If you pay someone the average amount of money they should be paid for the job, they'll do a half-butt job. Job will be done unsatisfactorily, basically. If you're lucky, they'll do a decent job. If you want a good job done, then you have to pay more than what you should have to pay just to get a decent job done. If you want the best job done, you gotta expend a lot of money and maybe give a big tip and maybe know someone. The nepotism and I can't think of the other word, but you gotta know the right people here in this city. You gotta have the hookup. But the other reason why I wanted to make this video, again, sorry for all the venting, is I wanted to do a sort of origin story. I think the term is, what is your red pill moment? So I would have to say that for me, my red pill moment is so severe, I'm not even gonna talk about it on this video. I'll bring it up some other time. But I think maybe I'll talk about one of the many crappy relationships I've had. When I was in my previous career, I ran into a guy with a Asian girl that he was dating and her parents, and he was asking me a series of questions about becoming a police officer. And it turns out that she was a nurse at a popular hospital. So fast forward a few weeks later, and I ran into her again. She had called the police for some reason. I forgot what it was, doesn't matter. And I gotta admit, the first time I met her, I thought, man, this girl's pretty attractive. Although most of my friends who saw her found her as being pretty much average, I found her attractive. But then again, I have interesting taste. I find gingers and Asian women very attractive. I know that's maybe weird, but I'm weird. The pale gingers, the freckles, and the pale skin, and, well, Asian women. So, like I said, she had called the police again for something. I ended up being the one who got dispatched. I get there, and we got to talking. I ended up giving her one of my cards with my number on it. You know, if she needs something, to give me a call again. And we got talking on the phone, and she's still with her man. But fast forward a month or two later, and we're hanging out. And the first red flag I should have noticed, that was too stupid and blinded by her good looks, or what I thought were good looks, that I didn't realize she was more than likely still talking to her man while she was with me. So fast forward some time later, and we are sort of kind of maybe dating. She sort of kind of maybe broke up with her guy, I don't know. We hooked up a few times, and then I would say right around the time that I was having a birthday get-together, some of my friends decided to have a dinner. I think that we were not talking at that time, because one of the other many red flags with this girl was we constantly got into arguments. And I'm not an argumentative type of guy. I just don't want to deal with the drama. If you do or say something that upsets me, I may bring it up and talk about it with you in a civil manner, if I believe that you can discuss it with me in a civil manner. But if I suspect that you're just gonna be melodramatic, or you're gonna deny having any blame or any fault in what's going on, or at least can't even compromise to meet me halfway, I'm not gonna have the discussion with you. I just don't see the point. And she's one of those girls. If you bring up something that she does, she'll turn it on you. If you try and talk to her in a rational manner, she'll become irrational. And let's be honest, guys, how many girls have you dated where it's been like that? So we weren't talking, but I had thought that she would come to this birthday get-together, but she didn't. And my guy friends, after the get-together ended, wanted to go to I don't know if I can say this term, but a dancing club with the women. Women's dancing club. I actually don't like going to those clubs. It's difficult to explain, but let me put it to you this way. I don't see the logic in going to a restaurant when you're hungry and basically paying to see the food but not being able to eat it. Does that make sense? So that's why, from my point of view, I'm not quite sure why those types of facilities are popular. Now, I do know that you can, with the right negotiation tactics, get to sample the goods, but I just didn't. I really wasn't interested. I mean, back then I was more. Let me see if I can fix this camera. I'm sorry, guys. It's just wobbling all over the place, and I'm doing a crappy job of trying to keep it stable. I was pretty blue-pilled back then, so I was all about the whole getting married, having kids, relationships, all that jazz. And I'm sorry if I mentioned this in a previous video, I'm repeating myself, but I had a townhouse, I had an Acura NSX, I had another sports car, I had a motorcycle. I was and compared to the rest of my life, I was at the top of the world back then. I had a good paying career. I had all the toys a guy could want. I mean, I didn't have the most expensive toys, but I figured an Acura NSX and a Honda S2000 and a Honda motorcycle, can't really complain. But I did. I complained because I still wasn't happy, because I felt like I needed to be in a relationship. What a fool I was. So instead of going to the club, trying to enjoy myself with my guy friends, I passed on that, told them I appreciate the dinner and I'm just gonna go home. But you know, it was a beautiful night. I'm in my Acura NSX. I didn't feel like going home, so I just went cruising. What I should have done, of course, was found other ways to have fun, but again, stupid blue-pilled. So I didn't know it then, but I know now she was messing around with some other guy, a bouncer at some club, because, you know, high standards. And she had texted me asking me what I was doing, but I wasn't going to tell her that I was, you know, going home or I was alone. I just told her I'm out. And she got pissed. And she's like, well, I guess you're out cruising in your car with some girl. I didn't deny it and I didn't confirm it. But then she got mad because I didn't respond and said, well, you know, do you want to hang out tonight? And I said, no, I've already got plans. I lied. But she was furious. And fast forward a month or two and we ended up hooking up again and we ended up dating, if you can call it that. And the entire time she thought I was with some girl. Because what happened was she saw me driving in the NSX. My windows are tinted pretty dark, and she assumed that I was with someone. But throughout our entire relationship, incidents like that happened where, let's say here's a perfect example. It was her birthday and she was having her dinner get together. And I went to her dinner get together and she ended up inviting her friends, 90% of which are all guys, one of whom is an ex-boyfriend. Let me repeat that. Just about all of her friends are male. One of those friends is an ex-boyfriend. Not the one I met her with, but some previous ex-boyfriend. So remember that point. While we were at this dinner, I wasn't too comfortable, you know, being there with all these guys. One of the guys brought his girlfriend, but it's like one girl and 9 guys and this girl and myself. So at one point I got up to go to the bathroom and she wanted to go with me. and my phone beeped, and I got a text message. Who is that? She asked. Of course she'll ask. She always asks who's texting me, who's calling me. She wanted to know because she was consistently insecure and paranoid that I was going to cheat on her or I was with someone else. I pulled out my phone and I told her the truth. I said, oh, this is surprising. It was an ex-girlfriend, perhaps one of the most attractive ex-girlfriends I've dated, at least in the face. I say that because one of the girls that I dated was a ginger who had an incredible physique, and I'm all about the athletic physique. So when I told her it was an ex-girlfriend, she got upset. And she told me that it's the right thing for me to do to contact this girl, to reply to her text, and to tell her that it's inappropriate for her to be texting me because I have a girlfriend. It's inappropriate for my ex to text me because I have a girlfriend. Now, this ex of mine, I dated her maybe about 4 years previously, 3 years previously. Hadn't heard from her since I broke up with her years ago. She was, I believe, about to graduate college, Washington University. So she wasn't even local. So let's compare this. I'm sitting at a table with a bunch of her guy friends, one of which is her ex-boyfriend that she's in continuous contact with. I'm supposed to be fine with that. Yet, I get a text message. And by the way, the only thing the text message was is her saying that she was at a John Legend concert, and you know, she and I like John Lennon, legend. John Lennon, I like him too. And that was it. That was the gist of it. It wasn't anything suggestive. It wasn't anything inappropriate. It was just like, hey, look where I am. Bet you wish you were here. That was it. So the dinner ended. Friends left. I drove her home. She asked if I wanted to hang out with her the next day, and I told her I had already made plans. So that upset her. She asked if I replied to my ex. I told her no, not yet. She started crying. And she had a big conniption, was yelling and arguing, and I just wasn't having it, so I just left. But what was happening, I didn't know this then, but I know this now, where she was projecting her own insecurities onto me. While she's flirting with other guys, talking to other guys, whenever, goddamn cigar smell. Whenever we were together, whenever my phone would beep, whenever I'll get a text message, she wanted to know who it was. She was always worried that I was gonna cheat on her, and the reality was I never once cheated on her. In fact, I haven't cheated on any girlfriend I've ever had. That's not to say I'm a saint, because like I said before, I've broken up with girls when they've got on my nerves. When they show these red flags or whatever, I end it. It's just not worth the stress. I mean, my career gave me more than enough, too much stress in my life. To get it from a female, I just didn't want to deal with it. But I guess the thing that broke the camel's back for me, or the last straw for me, was she mentioned that she was planning a trip to Jamaica, which is where I'm from. Obviously from the accent, I know you can tell. I've been here too long, clearly. And I was iffy on the idea. And I told her the truth. I said, listen, I think I was planning a trip with some of my guy friends, and she made a big stink about that. She didn't want me to go. Or she wanted to go with me. So I called her out in her usual hypocrisy, and I said, listen, when I planned the trip to such and such with my friends, you had a huge issue with it. You insisted that you be part of this trip. Now, I find out that in a few days, you're going with your girlfriends to Jamaica. It's an all-girls trip. And she said something along the lines of, oh, I'm going with my coworkers, they're not my girlfriends, they're just coworkers. And I said, is this a business trip? Is this a trip sponsored by your hospital? No. This is you and some of your coworkers going as friends, as individuals, not representing the company, not representing the hospital, to Jamaica for the weekend for a trip. She's like, yeah, you know, you're right. You've called me out on my hypocrisy. I agree with you. I'm not gonna go. Then a couple days later, I find out that she's going anyways. And then she completely denied that we ever had the conversation about her not going. We never had that conversation. Guys, come on, let's be honest. How many times have you had arguments with a female about a particular incident or thing or whatever, and they remember the incident in a completely different way from how it actually happened? It's like in their mind, they rewrote the whole entire history. I would say a majority of the girls I've dated have done that. And my memory is not perfect, but I'm pretty good at remembering certain details of a conversation. I certainly would remember the entire incident in a way that it never happened. You see what I'm saying? So she left to Jamaica, and I didn't hear from her the entire time. I was furious. And no, I take that back. I remember, in fact, you know what? It wasn't just a weekend trip. There was a weekday included. I know there was a weekday included because I had some special assignment that I had to do with another agency, a different department. We did some sort of like mock active bang bang sort of situation. I don't know if I could even say that word. I know the algorithms pick up whatever I say, but it was a specialized training that I had to do. And she actually called that day. We spoke briefly, and like a true hardcore blue pill simp, I was so thankful that this girl called me, when I really should have been furious. But the next few days, or the next couple of days, I didn't hear from her. I texted her, she wouldn't respond. And she eventually arrived back into town. She didn't text me to let me know she arrived. And I didn't text her to ask if she arrived. In fact, I stopped texting her altogether. I had enough. I got sick of it. And, well, I don't know how long it took. It was either a week or maybe 2 weeks, but she finally reached out to me. Or it was a few days after she got back. It doesn't matter. She finally reached out to me, and I didn't respond. And she tried reaching out to me again. I didn't respond. And I think she realized that I had reached a point where I was just fed up with her. Hold on, guys. Let's wait for this guy to pass. So like I was saying, I'm fairly certain she realized I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. So instead of acknowledging what she could have done wrong to have me in this state, she just pretended like there was nothing going on, that everything was just normal. She would invite me to some get-together with her friends. She would say, hey, my aunt and uncle are having this thing. Do you want to come? I just ignored her. Now I know I was in the wrong in that I should have said to her, listen, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't think we should date anymore because such and such. But like I said before, I've tried having rational conversations with her, and every time I would, she would become emotional, melodramatic. She'll start crying. She'll turn it on me. She will say that I'm the one being unreasonable, which I absolutely knew was wrong, and I was never convinced of that. But we just stopped talking. And I moved on, started dating other women. I think I met up with some crazy Russian woman at that point. But I was having my fun. Finally, it was going out, enjoying myself, moving on from her. But still, blue-pilled simp I was, there was still a part of me that really missed her. Why, you might think? Why would I miss someone that's clearly manipulative and is a hypocrite? Well, let's just say that the activity in bed was phenomenal. Now, by no skill that she possessed. What's the phrase? A unalive fish would be an apt description of her. How do I put this? I can tell that she wasn't someone that easily enjoyed the bed activities. But there are certain physical characteristics about her that, how can I put it? Let's say she's the opposite of a hot dog being thrown down the hallway. The opposite. Just right. So, and I know that's pretty shallow, but for that reason alone, I was blown away. Plus, I was able to convince her to experiment a bit more. So, well, I mean, I've got to say, compared to others, she was one of the best in that regard. And she knew it. She knew it because she used this ability of hers to manipulate guys. An ability. She's an X-Man. So I noticed that I was getting blocked calls on my phone. And to say I was getting them often would be a significant understatement. Let me put it to you this way. I would say on average, I was getting blocked calls on my phone 50 to 100 times a day. 50 to 100 times a day. And when you're a PO and you're working, that's somewhat distracting. You know, when I'm on an accident call, or I'm on an attempted unaliving call, and I'm stressed out and I'm trying to get all the information I need for the report and trying to calm people down, and it's a stressful situation. The last thing you want, especially when one of your superiors is trying to contact you, or when you're already on the phone trying to talk to a witness, a superior, or something, another officer, is to have your phone constantly blowing up with some psycho X calling you from a blocked phone again and again. And that's what I was dealing with. And this is like back in 2009, I think 2009. This is when you didn't have the option to block calls, block calls on the iPhone. I had to figure out how to jailbreak my phone, download a third-party app that I paid for, that wasn't cheap, that allowed me to block callers, and then to create sort of a whitelist, so only people who were on my contact list could call me. So when this happened, the next stage of stalking occurred, where if I posted on a social media site, and back then I think Facebook was, is Facebook still popular? I'm so out of the circle, I don't know. But if I would post something on my Facebook about, let's say I'll check in the movies, and I check in with one of my friends or a girl I was dating or whatever, or take a picture, whatever it is, she would text me from a phone. I don't know how she was able to bypass my blocked whitelist call, whatever, but she would send a message saying, hey, so I take it you're with such and such now, or hey, how's the movies, or something creepy like that. And I couldn't understand how from the social media site, obviously she would gather that, but she would text me these things before I would post anything. So I thought, okay, maybe I should just stop posting my activities on social media. So I stopped that. She still knew what I was doing. She still knew where I was going. She knew when I would take my lunch break. It was weird. And I know how she was able to contact me, because I didn't block I didn't block her mom's number or something like that, or her work number, because my blue simp self, I didn't completely disconnect myself from her. I made some stupid excuse about how if she ever really needed me, if it was an emergency, I wanted to make myself available to her. But the reality was, if I really wanted to completely disconnect myself from her, I would have disconnected all the numbers. And there would be no way of her contacting me. If it was an emergency, she can contact some other officer. She didn't need to contact me. So that was my blue simp moment, one of the many back then. So I couldn't figure out though how she knew where I was and what I was doing, like she was clairvoyant or something, like she was a psychic. It just was weird. Then one of my officers had told me, look, you know, I hope you don't get upset, but I think officer such and such is dating your girl. And I said, well, you know, that's officer such and such prerogative. She's not my girl anymore. But I asked him, I was like, hey, just out of curiosity, are you with my ex? Denied it. Of course he would. He was more of a blue simp, a blue pill simp than I ever could have been. I mean, well, that's not true. But at that point in time, he was worse than me. So, to test my theory that he was feeding her info about me, one day I clocked out from work, my shift was over, got out of my uniform, I was walking out the station, and he was standing out there in the hallway, and I pretended to be talking on the phone, and I pretended to talk to someone about going to the movies at such and such place, such and such. So she sent me a message on social media from some, I don't know, some profile. So I hear you're going to go to the movies tonight. Something like that. So obviously this guy is feeding her info. I mean, how pathetic is that, right? But what she was doing was she wanted to keep tabs on me. So the best way to keep tabs on me was to start dating someone who I work with. That's how conniving and devious she is. And she manipulated this guy to think that she really cared about him. So I called her out on it. She denied it. And then later on, I clearly saw or found evidence that she was clearly dating him, and I called her out on that, using that evidence, and I said I shouldn't have to do that. But I'm still sort of blue-pilled, so I did, and I told her, look, here it is, here's the evidence, here's the absolution that I was looking for. You are banging this guy on the side. Don't ever talk to me again. Stay the F out of my life. That's pretty much what I said. So there's more to the story, but this video is already too long. But the point I'm trying to make, guys, is look at that. I was at the prime of my life. I was probably in my late 20s. And Jesus Christ, dude. Sorry, it's another piece of machinery coming through, just throwing dirt all over the place. Let me just say this. Guys, when you're in your early 20s, look, forget that early 20s. When you're 20 to 30, even 35, and I know there's some very shallow, profoundly shallow females in this country that will say that they don't want to date a guy who's more than 5 years older than them, or some stupid arbitrary nonsense like that. Forget those girls. I had a townhouse that I bought in 2001 for like 78, let's say 80 grand. And a couple of days ago, just for shizzles and giggles, I went online, looked it up to see what that home that I lost or I had to sell would have been worth. And it was like 265, 270, I think almost $280,000 is what one estimate gave me. That's a $200,000 investment. But one of the worst red pill stories I have had resulted in me having to quit my job, sell my home, sell my NSX, sell everything, because I was foolish enough to trust some girl. And one day I'll tell that story, but for now I just wanted to talk about one of my red pill moment stories. I know there's some guys that might have that one moment, and those guys are smart. You only needed one moment to tell you, hey, I've got to change the way I do things. Me, I had to be banged in the head again and again and again before I finally woke up to the painful truth. Again, I shouldn't have to make this statement, but I know other MGTOW channels make this statement, and eventually I'm going to get tired of saying it, but I'm aware that this doesn't apply to every female out there. I understand that there are some good women out there, but if there really was that many, there wouldn't be so many MGTOW channels, and there really wouldn't be so many guys that have been so jaded, that are so jaded. And I believe that with the advent of social media, the increased use of online dating sites, that there are a lot of women out there that basically feel that even though that they're like a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, that they absolutely deserve at least an 8 to a 10 guy, because reasons. I mean, I'm barely 5'8", and when I had my NSX, I had my townhouse, I had the motorcycle, I had all the toys. I wasn't struggling for money. I wasn't rich. Don't know too many POs that are rich, but I wasn't suffering financially. And I can tell you, I got rejected a lot by females here in Miami. And one of the biggest excuses they gave was I was too short. And well, another one was I was too dark. You might not think it, but Miami is a very racist city. A lot of the Latin people here, they're very subtle about their racism, meaning that there's less chance of me getting pulled over and shot. But God, I gotta stop walking by that group with their damn cigars stink. But racism still exists here in Miami. And it's one of the reasons why I've dated very few Spanish girls. Not because I haven't tried, but because in my experience, a lot of them are, well, okay, let me say this. Just because they don't want to date me because I'm not their preference, doesn't mean that they're racist. I wanna put that out there. It took me a while to understand that because it was very frustrating. But you know, we are attracted to what we're attracted to. I mean, I like gingers and Asian girls, so go figure. But some of them are racist. So that's one of the difficult things about being a person of color, is not knowing if you're being treated the way you're treated for this reason or because of your skin color or both. So sometimes I just don't even focus on it really. Otherwise it'll just give you a headache. So yeah, I don't know. I want to give that story. I hope I relayed everything, because there's so many bad events that happened with that girl that I'm sure once I end this video, I'll think of 5 other pieces of stories I can bring up that I forgot to bring up. But just guys, focus on yourself. And those from 20 to 30s, focus on your finances, focus on building yourself. If I can go back in time and tell my 20-year-old self just 2 things, 2 rules that I should follow, one of them would be leaving the city. Get the hell out of Miami. This is a terrible city. That will be my first suggestion to myself. The second one is to focus on your finances. This whole, find a job that you really enjoy thing is fine. You can do that. But I would strongly suggest you find an occupation that you're willing to devote to. That won't make you miserable, but will make you decent money. I mean, the goal is financial independence. And if that's the goal, there's not too many jobs out there that will give you that, unless you're extremely frugal and you're very clever in how you invest. Second advice I would have given myself: don't risk anything you've worked for over a female. None of them are worth it. And if you think they are, still not worth it. Don't get a car with her name on it. Don't get a place in her name. Just focus on you. All right, guys. That's all I got for now. Take care.